Your TRAX is sponsored by Polaris. Think outside. Can-Am. Time for some off-road living. Yamaha. Revs your heart. And by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll.
Earlier this season, AJ did a build in the Trail Tech shop on our General XP 4, and the purpose of that build was to make a vehicle that could take you out into the wilderness and make sure that you got back with all of your stuff and your family without worrying. And we called it the Expedition build, and in reality, you know, a lot of the features that AJ put on it were more about ensuring durability than anything else. Skid plates and rock rails and things like that were all meant to make sure that no matter what circumstance you got yourself into, that vehicle was going to get you home. After that was done, we came up with the idea of doing a family camping adventure using that vehicle and showing that you can take your whole family out into the woods, all your gear, and get home, basically proving the vehicle worked the way AJ intended it to. So I volunteered for that story right away because I love being out on the trail with my family. I love camping. Now, I've actually never done an ATV camping trip here at home. I've done them on stories before. I was excited to have the family in tow because it's always a good time. It's so much fun to have them with me, and the girls just absolutely love being outside, out in the woods, finding sticks and catching frogs and stuff. So this was going to be a good time.
Normally when we go for ATV rides, we pick a destination, go there, do a loop, and then come right home. I love going on family ATV rides because I get to spend some quality time with my family. When Luke suggested the camping trip in the General, I was really excited because when we normally go camping, everything we have to carry. So this was an awesome idea.
I thought camping in the General would be fun because we don't have to carry all our stuff on our backs. I was really excited because we get to stay overnight, and I like going on camping trips.
We loaded up the General onto a trail that I knew was going to have wilderness camping opportunities, but I didn't have any particular spot to camp in mind. I just figured we'd get out there and do the hardcore thing where we'd find a place, make a camp, and spend the night. So it was kind of an adventure without a destination, and I was excited about that.
The girls and I helped Luke shoot the test ride in the past, and we really liked that it was smooth on the trails, and I knew that it would work for our family. As a passenger in the General with Luke driving, I actually feel pretty safe because sometimes he can get a little bit crazy, but there's a nice roll bar and I'm all tucked in, and I just feel like the kids and I are safe if anything were to happen.
I like riding because it's really fun, and I like it when Daddy drives because he likes going fast, and I do too. And he goes really fast in the puddles.
I was really surprised about how much we could fit in the General. We had to pack a tent, a barbecue, a cooler full of food, 4 sleeping bags, and chairs. One thing we forgot to bring was bug spray. I really wish we brought bug spray.
So we started on the rail bed. It's not really bumpy, so they really like that part of the trail. From the rail bed, we found an offshoot trail, had some rock ledges and more tight and twisty stuff. The girls liked that one too, but it was definitely more bumpy. We rode probably for a couple hours, and the girls were hungry. You know, it's one thing about having kids when you're doing any kind of traveling. If you don't feed them, things go downhill fast. So I just drove along the trail till I saw a perfect spot on the side of the trail to have a fire. We pulled over, and that was our lunch stop.
I was really impressed with Luke's abilities to make a fire. He was able to, we didn't have a lighter, so he was able to start a fire with his camping tools, and I was really impressed with that.
I couldn't believe Daddy used the striker to start a fire.
It was fast. I'm pretty proud of myself for being able to start the fire with a striker and some tinder. It's pretty manly, right? Flex my dad muscle.
We cooked hot dogs over the fire, and they were really good.
So I found some dead trees in the woods, chopped them up, cut the firewood right there, had a fire, roasted some hot dogs over the fire. It was just such an easy thing to do. I wasn't used to having wilderness camping be that easy.
Dirt Tracks is sponsored by Princess Auto. Make it work.
When lunch was over, I made sure to put the fire out. We were right by a pond, so we dumped lots of water on the fire and got it out safely, and we had some more riding to do.
Normally when we go on family rides, the trails are quite rough, but I loved these trails because it was nice and smooth. Not a lot of mud puddles, and we didn't get wet, and I love that.
You know, AJ did a great job with this general build. I mean, certainly we weren't pushing it to its limits to test things like the skid plates, but knowing that those parts were there, knowing that if we did get into a trail where we got into some gnarly stuff, that I wasn't going to be left out on the trail trying to get my family home safely. The trails got not really that technical. I won't say that they were really gnarly, and I didn't want them to be, because when you got the kids in the back, you really don't want to be rock crawling and getting stuck in mud holes and stuff. They wouldn't enjoy that. So I picked trails that were fun enough, but easy enough.
We went further and further into the woods. The trails were pretty bumpy and some parts were pretty smooth.
The girls were getting tired, hungry, and restless as we were driving for a few hours, and they wanted some dinner, so we were looking for a campsite out in the middle of nowhere.
With no destination in mind, I didn't know how long we were going to be riding. We packed some snacks in the little storage bag that AJ had installed in the dash of the General, set out on a trail, and I figured what I was going to do is just take whatever left and right I wanted to, and when it became time to, for the night to be over, I just start looking for a spot, and that's exactly what I did.
We've been riding for a while, and it was getting late, so we needed to find a campsite. The camping spot was great because there was a place for the tent, a place for the fire. There was a place for lots of stuff.
The spot we decided to camp was perfect. It had needles all over the ground, which made it very soft for sleeping on. And the tall trees were beautiful, and it was right beside a pond, which was important to Luke because he wanted to make sure we could put out the fire.
Where we put the tents, you didn't even need like an air mattress because the pine needles were so soft. Before we had a fire, we dug a hole and cleared all the pine needles and anything flammable. The girls helped me dig a big hole, set up. We had the General there behind us, using the back of it for the barbecue. It was just perfect. We had the Polaris cooler, and Polaris sells a cool accessory for the top of the cooler that's a seating pad, so you can use your cooler as a seat as well. It was just, as I looked at the campsite, I was like, you know what? If you designed a campsite, this would be it. This was perfect.
I love that the General can take you places that are so remote and places that you've never even been before.
The steak is really good. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, girls, let's say grace. Lord, thank you for this food. Thank you for a beautiful night. Thank you for
comforting. It was peaceful. I don't know, man. As a dad, being able to do that, watch your family enjoy being out in the woods, getting away from all their devices and plugged in and screens and all that garbage. We didn't have any of that. It was just a really, really pleasant, pleasing time that made me feel like I was giving my kids something that I wouldn't have been able to give them any other way but with this General out on this trail.
After dinner, it was getting really late and way past the girls' bedtime. Luke put them to bed in their tent, and we had some time together just around the campfire. The General gave us a wonderful camping experience that I never thought was possible. It's something I'll definitely want to do in the future.
Dirt Tracks is sponsored by Shock Strap. Start strapped, stay strapped.
I'm not going to pretend like we haven't installed a few MBRP exhaust systems on different side-by-sides and ATVs over the years. We have, a bunch of them, but there's a very good reason why. When the crew at MBRP sits down to design an exhaust for a side-by-side or ATV, they don't just bend some tubing, weld on a can, and call it a day like some of their competitors do. A lot more goes into this process.
Well, there's certainly a lot of market research that kind of goes on in behind the scenes first. We look at kind of the competitor market, what's out there right now, and then look at the unit specifically, and then how can we make it obviously better and, you know, perform better, sound better, but then again, you know, it's got to fit, it's got to sound good, it's got to look good, and that's really kind of what we take home at MBRP. But, you know, again, doing those extra steps, making sure it fits, it looks good, it sounds good is really something that we want to make sure that we do right the first time. So in the power sports market, really specifically, something again, you know, obviously a lot of these vehicles are heavily modified, and we want to be mindful of clearances, you know, sound, especially for trail riders or, you know, guys that are doing kind of long trips or mudding or any of those environments. It's got to be a strong product for sure. So that's something we really kind of carry with us through the whole process and being mindful of the end consumer again. So that's really what we focus on.
The exhaust we're installing today is one of MBRP's newest models and fits Can-Am's Defender HD10.
Like any of our performance exhausts, to some it kind of looks like a bit of a workhorse, but I mean in the general, you know, realm of in power sports, the number of these Defenders that are kind of heavily modified with wheels, lift kits, and everything too. I mean, exhaust kind of is right up there too, and you know, what a better opportunity for MBRP to kind of be into that market as well. And obviously sound and performance are our top two kind of things we try and hit, kind of adding a little bit of that MBRP styling to it as well. You know, exhaust is really the only accessory that's both truly is a performance upgrade as well as an aesthetic upgrade as well too. So this specific one, that's what we're looking to do.
As with all MBRP exhaust systems, everything needed for install is included, and the install itself follows two very basic steps: pull off the old and install the new. So there might be a few steps in between, but it's really a simple job pretty much anyone can do in their garage with just basic hand tools.
The overall construction of the muffler, the MBRP, we don't actually require tuning, so it has an internal baffle in it where it allows maximum flow, but either doesn't allow it to run too lean or too rich. Kind of gives it that perfect harmony of sound and flow performance as well too. So it is TIG welded, 304 stainless, utilizing laser cut brackets, so it helps for that really solid fit. They are built in a jig too, so fitment is guaranteed. Previous designs, we actually used the billet end cap with kind of a 45-degree kind of cut on it too. Really nice clean look, but this one specifically, we actually did kind of a sharp mandrel bend at the side too. So it's actually inside of the shock. You noticed previously why we didn't go out way out around the shock, kind of like the stock design. Really kind of can interfere with some aftermarket upgrades and everything too. So utilizing the MBRP design, again, gives you maximum clearance for when you do those upgrades. So this one specifically, we are using our new 5-inch muffler. Again, when we talk about sound, I mean, anybody can really build a loud exhaust, but to have something that, you know, sounds good, looks good, and really kind of gives you that opportunity not to use a tuner, this is where the 5-inch muffler kind of comes into play. You know, it allows us to kind of get that, again, that bigger baffle inside and still kind of having the solid flow that really kind of makes it an MBRP exhaust.
Many people believe an aftermarket exhaust is an aftermarket exhaust. As long as it's made from stainless steel, it's as good as the next one. But that couldn't be farther from the truth.
So when it really comes to quality and durability, the real factor that sets MBRP apart is a lot of our real-world testing. You know, we work with guys like Lauren Healy and the King of the Hammers and really kind of putting our exhaust through the ultimate test. So with our full power sports lineup and talking even to the side-by-side world, none of our exhausts actually need tuning. And that's something we've really taken our extra time, again, in dyno testing, in that real-world testing, measuring flow, measuring back pressure to make sure that, again, the internals are just right. It fits, it bolts on, it performs the first time.
Now that everything's mounted up correctly, it's time for the moment of truth. Just how does an MBRP exhaust system sound on a Defender HD10? Well, man, as always, I am super impressed with the finished product here. You and the crew at MBRP, as always, have done an outstanding job with this exhaust. It sounds great, it saves weight, it adds horsepower. I can say for sure that if the day ever comes when I buy an HD10, this exhaust will be at the top of my upgrade list.
When that day comes, Luke, you know who to call.
You bet.
Closed captioning of Dirt Tracks is sponsored by MBRP Performance Exhaust. Race-inspired, trail-proven.
RZR sure has come a long way since its humble beginnings back in 2008 with an 800cc motor and a 50-inch wide chassis. And to say that we wouldn't have ever expected it to be where it is today would be the understatement of a lifetime. The basic layout of this 2020 Pro XP Ultimate is the mic drop of the 64-inch wide category. Seriously, this thing is feature-packed, handling-packed, fun-packed, and you know it's power-packed. And when we say power, we're talking 181 horsepower right from the dealer. It's a handful, but not in the way that you might think. What I mean is somehow Polaris over the years, through variations and testing and more testing and then weekend testing, have found a way to build this insane power into a chassis that's crazy aggressive, giggle-inducing, and yet still very controllable and confidence-inspiring. And let me stop for a sec, because we here at TRAX use that term quite a lot, confidence-inspiring, and I want to be totally clear about exactly what I mean. To me, confidence-inspiring is a tough thing to make tangible. It's that harmonious balance between out of control and grab more throttle. The difference between hit the brakes or just hit it. It's that feeling that you don't get of, uh-oh, am I going too fast, or should I really be doing this? Confidence-inspiring isn't a term that we use lightly. Because the truth is, to be, you must have a product that we so completely believe in that it actually makes us feel more in control, feel more confident, and push the limits further, all without making us feel like we shouldn't have done it. And the 2020 RZR Pro XP Ultimate has this characteristic. It's got a lot of it. And when I get behind the steering wheel and close the door, it makes me feel like I can conquer any trail, any jump, or anything that the wild outdoors can throw at me. If you break it down to its most basic element, this is where you'll find the real reason for this confidence. No, it's not the engine, it's not the suspension, it's not the interior, and it's not all the fancy gauges and lights. At its core, it's the chassis, and the way that chassis interacts with all those things that I just mentioned. Because from all the years of doing this job, I've learned a few things. Suspension only makes up for so much, and horsepower is only as good as the chassis you put it in. Chassis dynamics and the drivability of the RZR come from years of building RZRs, real-world durability testing, and also listening to feedback from consumers and racers alike. And when you have that flat-flying, turn-in-loving, power-sliding, precise chassis geometry and design, you can link up the Dynamics 2.0 active suspension and be certain that you're going to get precise feedback from the terrain, instantaneous compression changes on all four corners, and the ability to change settings on the fly from the steering wheel. It's up to 22 inches of wheel travel and heads-up feedback on what your suspension is doing, real-time on a 7-inch display. Back to the chassis. When you have the suspension dialed like Polaris does with the Dynamics 2.0, you're going to need a big dose of horsepower. And up till now, it's been pretty good, but this is better. With emphasis on the 20 to 50 mile per hour range, Polaris has tuned this 181 horsepower turbocharged 925cc dual overhead cam sub 1 liter to perform best in this target range. And let me tell you, the 0 to 20 and 50 and above ain't bad either. In fact, I think from a standstill, this may be the most hard-hitting stock side-by-side on the market. The way the drive-by-wire system interacts with the throttle body is seamless. No lag, no stumbles, just precise throttle response. And when you get into the meat of the mill and the tire speed increases, it seems like it may never stop. You can go from a rolling 20 miles per hour to well over 60 in just a matter of seconds. Speaking of how it's doing it, you may be asking, yeah, okay, so it's fast, but will it hold together? And I'm glad that you asked, because yes, it will. Polaris claims the CVT system runs so cool now that the belt will last twice as long as previous version turbos. They also beefed up the chassis, well, everywhere, and when utilizing the one-piece chassis design, it's built to be beat on. And while the chassis and suspension and engine are great, the driveline has seen some significant upgrades over previous version RZRs as well. The tranny's 39% stronger, the front driveline is 300% stronger, and the axles, yeah, they're 800% stronger. I'd say it's built like a tank, but that infers heavy and slow, and this is neither, but you catch my drift. This thing is the ultimate in strength. Now, the Pro XP Ultimate badge does come at a cost, but if you're at a dealership looking for a Pro XP, the upcharge isn't going to shock you all that much. And let me tell you, it's worth it 10 times out of 10, both for fun factor as well as resale. The Ultimate package gets you quite a bit over the premium package. The dynamic suspension with Fox shocks, the 7-inch display, and the sweet Rockford Fosgate sound system integrated into the dash and display just like a pickup truck. Now you're going to pay about $5,000 Canadian or $3,500 American to go from premium to Ultimate, or about $7,000 Canadian and $5,000 US over the base Pro XP. That's a lot of coin, but it's a pay-to-play market, and this thing means fun, serious fun. But I can't for the life of me imagine why at this price point Polaris didn't include a roof. I mean, come on people, even just a throwaway poly roof would have not only made this thing look even better, it's just a basic staple for side-by-sides and I think a requirement at this level, especially this price point. Add to that a really strangely located stereo antenna that I'm pretty certain we'll be seeing a lot of warranty claims stating it just broke off, and you've got a couple of oversights. Okay, so I'm searching pretty hard for things to pick on, but that's because this vehicle is so incredible. And I always take the time to stop and think, is this a vehicle that I could have in my garage? And when it comes to the 2020 Pro XP Ultimate, absolutely. This is a ride I'd buy for me. If you enjoyed this segment, make sure you hit that like button and definitely consider leaving us some comments. We always appreciate hearing from our fans. Also, make sure you're subscribed because we have tons of new content coming up right here on Dirt Trax.